Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA Reddit stories. In this Ripe Stories video, what if I told you that cutting down a 180-year-old tree can cost you over $1 million? For some people, this might be obvious, but this ridiculous homeowner association thought they could cut down my beautiful oak tree without any consequences. While I was on vacation, they cut down my tree to increase property values and claimed they did me a favor. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is from r/legal advice and is titled Texas, HOA cut down my ugly old tree while I was on vacation. I'm not even part of the HOA. What can I do? So I'm not really sure where to start with this one. A coworker told me to post on this subreddit to get some advice on what to do. So for some background, about 4 years ago, my wife and I bought our place. It's an older home on roughly an acre and a half, built sometime in the 70s. The land sits right up against a newer subdivision that was built maybe 8 or 9 years ago, but my property has never been part of that subdivision and is not part of their HOA. The previous owner refused to sell to the developers when they were buying up everything around him, so my house just kind of sits on its own little island next to all those cookie-cutter homes. I confirmed this with the title company when we bought, and I pulled records again last year just because all of the nonsense I'm about to describe. There's nothing in my deed referencing any HOA period. The reason I bought the house, honestly, was the tree. Right in the middle of the front yard, there was this massive bur oak. I'm not exaggerating when I say it was probably the biggest, oldest tree in the entire area. The arborist who eventually came out estimated it at around 180 years old. The trunk was wider than I'm tall, and the canopy was huge. It shaded almost the entire front of the house in the summer. My wife loved it, and my kid had a swing on one of the lower branches. Now, here's where the trouble started though. The HOA president of the subdivision next door is a guy I will call Bob. From the moment we moved in, Bob had a problem with us. He came over within the first week or so and made a point of mentioning the tree situation. He told me my tree dropped acorns and leaves into the subdivision's common area, a strip of grass on their side of the property line, and that this was a problem because their landscaping company charged extra to clean it up. Well, I told him politely that I was sorry to hear that, but the tree was not going anywhere. Over the next 2 years, Bob escalated. I'm talking weekly visits, some months. He would ring my doorbell to have a chat. He would leave handwritten notes in my mailbox. He told me the tree was ugly. He told me the tree was diminishing property values in his subdivision. He told me that my fence was the wrong color, and he told me my mailbox did not match the neighborhood aesthetic. Each time I told him the same thing. I'm not in your HOA. You have no authority over my property. Please just leave. About a year ago, things got more formal. I started receiving printed notices stuck to my door. They claimed that I was in violation of various subdivision rules and demanding fines of $50, $100, and sometimes even $250. I threw them all in a folder because my wife told me to keep them in case we ever needed them. Smart woman. I also started getting emails from a compliance committee address. I sent a single reply with a copy of my deed and a polite request to stop contacting me, but they did not stop. In the spring, Bob came over with a final notice stating that if the tree was not removed within 30 days, the HOA would take action to abate the nuisance and bill me for it. I told him to get off my porch and not come back. I called a lawyer friend who told me that the HOA had absolutely no legal authority over me and that the notice was meaningless. And by the way, guys, before we proceed, if you would have been in OP situation and had a beautiful tree like that on your property and then got a final notice from the HOA because of this, essentially threatening to cut down the tree, what would you have done? Honestly, I would have instantly gone to the police, but then again, what can you do if they haven't exactly cut down anything yet? I mean, no crime has happened yet, they are just intimidating you. Really a difficult spot to be in. And by the way, if you enjoyed the HOA and tree law legal advice stories, then please don't forget to like the video and post a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Anyway, my lawyer suggested I send them a cease and desist letter, which I did, via certified mail about 3 months ago, and I got the green card back. Someone in the HOA office signed for it, and I figured that would be the end of it. But it wasn't.
This summer, my wife's grandma passed away in the country my wife is from, and we ended up flying out for the funeral to help her family handle the estate. We were gone for about 4 weeks, and we got home on a Saturday after probably 22 hours of travel. I noticed something looked off about the front of the house. The tree was gone. There was not even a stump left, there was a dirt patch and a lot of wood chips raked into the bare ground where my tree had been for almost 2 centuries. The swing was lying on the ground, the birdhouse my kid made in 2nd grade was lying broken on the dirt. I think I stood there for a full minute before I could even process what I was looking at. My wife came out a few minutes later and started crying. I went to the closest house in the subdivision and asked the lady there if she knew what happened, and she said that a tree service had been at our house all day Tuesday and that the HOA finally got it taken care of. She said like it was a good thing. I drove straight to Bob's house. He answered the door, and the second he saw me, he had this little smug look on his face. He told me, and I'm quoting as best as I remember, "We took care of the hazard while you were gone. The board approved the abatement. You will get the bill in a couple weeks." He started to close the door, and I asked him point blank if he understood that I was not in his HOA and that the tree was on my property. He said, again, and I'm quoting, "The tree was a hazard to the community. The community decided." Well, I went home and sat at the kitchen table for a while trying not to lose it. So my questions for you: what do I do first? I'm thinking police, but I don't know if this is criminal or just civil. The tree was on my property, there was no question about it. I mean, old surveys, satellite photos, the whole deal. Number 3, the HOA has absolutely no jurisdiction over me. They cannot approve anything on my land. Number 4, I have a folder of about 40 violation notices, emails, and 1 certified cease and desist letter with the signed return card. Number 5, how much could a 180-year-old bur oak even be worth? Tens of thousands? I want this guy and his entire HOA board to feel this. They spent 2 years harassing me and then waited until I was out of the country to commit what feels like an actual crime. Any advice would be hugely appreciated. I've never been in a legal mess like this before. And yeah guys, once again let me know in the comments, if someone cut down your oak tree, what would you suggest OP to do? And by the way, OP is definitely wrong here. We are not talking about tens of thousands of dollars, more like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm curious if these entitled awful HOAs ever read these tree law Reddit stories, because by now everybody should know that these trees, especially oak trees, can get really expensive. And by the way guys, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to not miss any of my uploads. Comment number 1 said, "Friend, you have stumbled into the holy grail of property law, tree law. Stop everything else and do these in order. Number 1, call the police right now. This is criminal trespass and likely felony criminal mischief depending on your state. The dollar threshold for felony in most states is like $1,500 to $2,500 and you are way past it. Get a report number and hire a consulting arborist. Not just any arborist, you want one who does appraisals using the trunk formula or CTLA method. They will produce a report so you can use it in court. And number 3, get a surveyor to confirm property lines so the HOA cannot try to claim that the tree was on their side. Number 4, hire a property law attorney. Texas has treble damages for tree theft under certain statutes, meaning you get 3 times the value. Number 5, don't clean up the wood chips, that's evidence and also legal use. Number 6, find out which tree service did the work. They have paperwork and possibly insurance. You can also go after. A 180-year-old bur oak in good health could easily be appraised at 6 figures. I'm not even joking. Comment number 2, not a lawyer, but I work in the tree industry. Bur oaks of that age are basically irreplaceable. Mature bur oak lumber is also very valuable, and the wood is yours. Find out where it went. Comment number 3, the certified cease and desist is the kill shot here. They received it, someone signed for it, they knew in writing that they had no authority over your property. But they did this anyway. That's not a misunderstanding. That's knowing, an intentional act which absolutely opens the door to punitive damages on top of compensatory ones. Bob and the entire HOA board that voted to abate your tree are personally liable. You can pierce the corporate veil because they were acting outside the scope of their authority. Comment number 4, HOAs in most states are non-profit corporations or mafia organizations, and board members have a fiduciary duty to act within their authority. When they act outside their authority and cause damage, the HOA's D&O insurance often will not cover them. That means Bob and every board member who voted on this could be on the hook personally. If they don't have personal assets to cover a six-figure judgment, you can put liens on their houses. Yeah, the same houses they were trying to protect property values of. Comment number 5, save everything. The notices, the emails, the cease and desist with the return receipt, photos of the tree before, the broken birdhouse, the swing on the ground, date stamped, today. Also, depending on your county, there may be heritage tree protection ordinances. A 180-year-old bur oak might be a protected tree under local law, which adds municipal fines and potentially state environmental violations on top of all of it. Lawyer up and update us. We love this stuff. And yeah guys, we have 2 more updates to read for this story, so we will continue with the first one. It goes like this. Hey all, I cannot believe the response to my post. I read every single comment and took notes. Quick rundown on everything I've done so far. This is gonna be long because a lot has happened since then. I went to the police station with my folder and the officer at the front desk seemed kind of bored at first, but when I got to the part about the tree being 180 years old and worth potentially 6 figures, his eyebrows went up and he asked me to wait. Another officer came out and they took my full statement. I gave them photos of the tree before, photos of the dirt patch, the violation notices, the certified mail receipt, and the names of the 2 HOA board members that I knew of. They gave me a case number and told me they would assign someone to investigate. Tuesday, I called 3 consulting arborists. The first 2 were booked for months, and the third one used to work for the State Forestry Service. When I described what happened, he literally said, "Oh boy," and told me he could be at my house Wednesday morning. Wednesday, he showed up and spent 4 hours on my property, and he measured the dirt patch where the tree trunk had been, looked at my old photos and told me the tree appeared to have been in excellent health, no rot, no disease, no pest damage in any of the chips that he sampled. He said he would have his preliminary report to me in a week. Thursday, I called a property attorney that one of you recommended to me via DM. They specialize in tree and easement cases, and the attorney I spoke to is a senior partner. After I told her the whole story, she went quiet for a second and said, "How fast can you come to my office?" I went in Friday morning and she read every single document in my folder, making little noises and writing on a legal pad. She agreed to take the case on contingency. She said that she had handled a similar, smaller case a few years ago and won. Friday afternoon, I also got the surveyor out. He confirmed what I already knew. The tree was about 26 feet inside my property line, not even close to the boundary. The surveyor told me something interesting though. While he was setting up his equipment, a guy from the subdivision came out and started questioning him. The surveyor told him, politely, that it was none of his business. The guy then said, "He doesn't have a leg to stand on, the board voted on it." So at least one more board member apparently knows what's going on here. Now the really interesting part though, I asked around in the subdivision, carefully, just casually, to find out which tree company did the job, and the neighbor who originally told me that they had been there all day Tuesday remembered the company name was on the side of the truck, and she said it was something with Pro in the name. I called every tree service within 50 miles with Pro in the name. Most of them said no. The fourth one I called paused and asked who I was. I told them I was the homeowner where they did a job last month. There was a long silence and then the guy said, "Sir, I think you need to talk to my boss." The owner called me back within an hour and he sounded nervous. Apparently, when his crew arrived, Bob had been there waiting with a thick stack of paperwork, a tree removal authorization form allegedly signed by me, an HOA abatement order, and what looked like a permit from the city. The owner said they always require homeowner authorization, and Bob provided what appeared to be one with my signature. I told him I never signed any such thing and that I'd been out of the country for the entire month. He went very quiet and said he would call me back. He called me back about 3 hours later. He said he had reviewed the file and that the homeowner authorization had a signature that did not even match what he had on the contract Bob himself had signed. Bob had also signed as authorized representative of the property owner in addition to my forged signature. He said his lawyer was going to be in touch with me and that they have insurance and that they want to cooperate fully. So now we are not just talking about destruction of property and HOA overreach anymore. No, we are talking about forgery. I called my attorney first thing Monday morning, and she actually whooped out loud. She told me forgery turns this from a serious civil case into a slam-dunk criminal case, and it gives us a clear path to the tree company's insurance. The arborist's preliminary report came in yesterday, and the tree as appraised value is around $251,400. For one tree. My state has a treble damage statute for trees cut without authorization, so in theory the actual damages could be over $750K before we even start counting attorney fees. The value of the wood, the tree service confirmed they sold the trunk to a specialty lumber yard for $4,200, and punitive damages. I will keep updating. I'm still kind of in shock. Thank you, Reddit. And now the final update to the story. Alright everyone, it's been about 7 months since my last update. I'm so sorry for the radio silence, but my attorney told me very firmly to stop posting until everything was wrapped up, and I listened. Now that it's all officially done, I can finally give you the full conclusion. This is gonna be long. Settle in, you earned it. First, the criminal stuff. Bob was charged with 3 felonies: criminal mischief over $30,000, the tree's value pushed it into the highest tier, forgery of a financial instrument, the fake authorization form, and theft over $30,000 for the lumber that was sold. He was also hit with a misdemeanor trespass charge, and he was sentenced to 4 years in state prison. With 2 years to serve and 2 years probation plus restitution, now the civil stuff. After my attorney sent the demand letter, things moved very quickly. The HOA's insurance company immediately denied coverage on the grounds that the board had acted outside the scope of its authority, just like one of you predicted. The HOA itself had about $80,000 in its bank account, which they tried to offer as a full settlement. My attorney laughed and told them to come back when they were serious. We then filed suit against the HOA itself, Bob personally, and the other 4 board members personally as well, the tree service company and the tree service company's insurance. Within 2 weeks of filing, the tree service insurance settled with us for $200,000, their full policy limit. They stipulated this was for the company's liability for not properly verifying authorization. The tree service owner himself was very apologetic about it, and he even wrote a personal letter to me. I actually believe him. He cooperated fully with the police and the prosecution, and I don't hold a grudge against him. The other 4 board members panicked. 2 of them hired their own attorneys and tried to argue they had not really voted on it. We had emails subpoenaed from the HOA's records though, showing all of them had voted in favor of the abatement, and their personal attorneys quickly negotiated settlements, $25,000 from each of them, paid out of their personal savings. That is $100,000 total from the 4 of them. The HOA itself eventually settled for $75,000. They had to take out a loan against future dues to pay it. Bob himself owned his house outright. My attorney got a judgment against him personally for $625,000, the treble tree value plus various costs and fees minus what we had already collected from others, and we ended up putting a lien on his house. When his wife sold it as part of the divorce, that judgment got paid out of the proceeds before either of them saw a dime. So when you add it all up, it comes to just a bit over $1 million. After Bob's house sold, the HOA was in serious financial trouble from paying out their settlement. They had to triple HOA dues for the year just to stay solvent. 3 more board members, the replacements, resigned within months. The subdivision is now in active dispute about whether to dissolve the HOA entirely. We also planted a new bur oak in the front yard. It's gonna take 100 years to look like the old one looked, but my great-grandkids will probably be the ones to see it the way we saw the old one, but it is there. And the next one is another sort of tree law story, which is titled Virginia, neighbor is on video ripping my eastern redbud sapling out of the ground. So I live in Virginia in a neighborhood without an HOA. I bought my house a couple years ago and there were 0 large trees in the yard. All of my neighbors have very landscaped yards. My house needed renovations, so I have not done much in the yard other than plant some trees so they had time to get established. In the 2 years I've lived there, I've planted 7 trees in the front yard. 4 of the trees I've planted have been eastern redbud saplings on either side of my driveway. The first pair died over the first winter I was here, and then I planted the second pair this past fall. The most recent pair survived. One was absolutely thriving, and the other one was struggling but had growth. Between the trees and my neighbor's property is my mailbox, and the trees have mulch rings. I say these things because it's not like there's a question of whose property the trees were on, or did they look dead, and did the neighbor think they were doing me a favor by removing yard debris. 3 weeks ago, I went out to check the mail and the one closest to my neighbor's yard was missing. There was not a sapling laying on the ground, so it was not like an animal chewed it at the base and it fell over. The entire thing was gone, but the mulch was not disturbed. I even dug into the mulch to try to find the root ball because it was so weird. No root ball to be found though. My partner and I could not remember the last time we had seen it, and we had friends in town helping with the renovation, so it went out of our mind as a weird thing. Partner was convinced it was just an animal, and I was convinced someone stole my tree. Tonight I went out to take the garbage to the road, and lo and behold, the second red bud is missing. I look around for it, and in case it's on the ground and it's not there. Mulch is not disturbed though, exact same situation as the other one. So then I dig down to try to find the root ball, and there isn't one. It's only 4 feet tall, so not like there would be a big one to begin with. I call my partner and let them know they've been out of town but mentioned when they left Wednesday morning, and they remember checking on the tree. So I go to the video footage, and it was there. The morning of the first and the morning of the second, the morning of the third, hard to tell, it might be there, it might not. I go through more video from Friday and confirm the tree's not there, so I go back to the second and I start going through the video, and around 7 PM I get my answer. I see my neighbor walk onto my property carrying yard debris from her yard. She's looking around and then walks up to the tree, rips it out of the ground and walks off to her property, snapping the tree in half a couple of times as she goes. If I had to guess here, she was carrying the yard debris as a cover of, "Oh, I thought it was yard debris and I was just trying to help." I went back to check to see if I have her on video doing the same thing to the first tree, but the video does not go back that far unless you specifically save the video, which I didn't think to do. If I were a gambler, I would put money on the fact that she did the same thing to the first tree. I know tree law in VA states that if the trees are on your side, you can trim them as long as you don't do it to a point where you kill them, but these trees were very much on my property. The one that she killed recently, it was literally the tree, my driveway, a small stretch of yard where the first tree was that went missing, my mailbox, and then the neighbor's yard. What is standard procedure here on addressing this with a neighbor? I don't want to get police involved for destruction of property, but at the same time, who comes onto someone's property and rips their trees out of the ground? Unrelated though, my relationship with this neighbor has always been wonderful. Like, I bake them pies and they give me things from their garden. We bring in packages for each other when FedEx inevitably delivers them to the wrong house. There was also a windstorm in March that blew a tree from their neighbor's yard, 2 houses down from me, into their yard, and I went out with my chainsaw to help cut it up so it didn't just sit. Quick update to the story, so this has gathered far more comments than I expected, but I figured there were a couple of things that needed to be addressed. First, the video. The video is safe. I got a copy of it on my phone, personal laptop, work laptop, and have sent it to many friends because it's such an insane situation. We have copies should I need to use it. Second, tree proximity to property line. Because I was curious, I went out with my handy-dandy tape measure to check to see how far the trees were planted from the line. The first tree that was yoinked 3 weeks ago was 6 feet from the property line. The second tree that was pulled a few days ago was 22 feet 3 inches from the property line. The only one arguably close to the property line was the first one, 6 feet from the line, and honestly, if she had come to me with a concern about it, I probably would have agreed to move it in the fall when it went dormant and it was safe to do so. Well, instead, she chose tree violence. Well, third, the plan. Because my partner travels a lot, we both own our houses, so neither of us are going anywhere, and because I want to make sure she doesn't retaliate against the other 9 baby trees in my backyard, that is fenced in, or my dog, I've decided to take Reddit's advice to an extent. Basically, I'm gonna tell them someone vandalized and stole property out of my yard, and I'm gonna be going through the video from one of the cameras in the next couple of days, and this camera points at the area of the trees. I'm going to ask them if they had anyone vandalize or steal their property in the last week or so, basically giving them the opportunity to fess up and give me whatever lie they come up with on the spot as to why she destroyed the trees. If she owns up to it, I will ask her to buy me new trees to make it right and then tell her she should not come onto my property and do something like this again without my permission. If she doesn't, in a few days I'll go back with the video and give her another opportunity to make it right. At that point, if she still doesn't, then I will report her for theft and destruction of property and have her trespassed. Because clearly we're not going anywhere anytime soon, I don't want to go completely nuclear in the first round. Hopefully it doesn't get to the last bit. Number 4, she's an avid gardener. She has trees lining the back of her property, trees on the property line she shares with me, close to where the redbird massacre of 2024 occurred, a vegetable garden, and so many roses and bushes that I've lost count, and recently added some new low shrubs near the trees on the back of her property. Her yard is very curated with many shrubs, trees and flowers, both deciduous and evergreen, and while I could be wrong, I don't think her removing the trees had to do with her being concerned about their leaves. If she were, she would probably take down one of the 260-year-old maple trees in her backyard. Final update. Okay, so this will hopefully be the final update, and there won't be any need to get motion-activated sprinklers involved. I'm not ruling them out if this ends up escalating after this post. Today I worked from my closet because it has a window that just so happens to overlook my neighbor's garden, and her car was in her driveway, so I knew she was home. Around 1 p.m. she made an appearance, so I went out to check the mail. I waved to her with a big smile and said hello. She said hello, and we exchanged minor pleasantries. And then I segued into asking, "Oh hey, have you guys noticed if you have had anything stolen or vandalized in your yard?" "Oh no, not at all." "Well, I'm glad to hear it. I've had 2 trees taken from my yard over the last 3 weeks." "What do you mean taken from your yard?" "Well, the 2 redbirds I had at the end of the driveway. They were saplings, and one was by the mailbox and the other one was by the lamppost. The first disappeared about 3 weeks ago, and the second one disappeared sometime after Wednesday last week." "No, we haven't had anything like that happen." "Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm gonna check one of the cameras I have on the property in the next couple days. It's pointed at the driveway, so it gets clear views of the trees and we will be able to see what happened. You know, hopefully it's just animals or something, because if someone came onto my property and stole them, well, I'm going to have to get the police involved for theft." If I did not have her attention before, I definitely had it at the last bit, because now she started asking more clarifying questions about these missing trees. "What kind of trees did you say? Where were they? How big were they?" I answered all of her questions and added on that it sucks because I bought these trees and they had been planted since fall. But yeah, I guess we will find out what happened in a few days when I have an opportunity to check the video. Well, that's about the time she says, "Oh, that might have been me. I think I thought they were weeds." For the record, no, I don't believe she mistook 2 4-feet saplings for weeds. I let her know that if that is the case, I would like her to replace them. To which she replied that she's not sure, but it might have been. I reassured her that it's okay if she doesn't know. We can wait to resolve this until I view the video, because I absolutely don't want her to pay for replacement if she's not responsible. Y'all, she absolutely did not want me to go to the video. She asked me what kind of trees were it again, and I told her. She said that if I told her how much they were, she would pay me back. And I said, "Are you sure you don't want to wait to check the video?" "No, I will take care of it. Just let me know." I pulled my phone up and found comparable redbirds online, and we calculated the total that she would owe together. She went inside and gave me cash to get replacements for the redbirds. We stood and chatted for a couple more minutes, but I did reiterate that she needed to talk with me before doing something like this in the future, and if she sees some weeds that she thinks need to be pulled on my property, to let me know, because it's not fair or right for her to bear the burden of weeding my yard. And so concludes the redbird murder saga. I hope. And the next one is a funny revenge story that was submitted by a viewer. It is titled, "You don't need the aircon on, it is not that hot." So for some context, I used to work in a hardware shop here in the UK. We had a heat wave one weekend when I was working. The shop floor was roasting, but despite calling upstairs, the manager would not turn on the aircon from his office, telling us to stop complaining, but he would not come down to the floor. Eventually, I went up to see him after several complaints from customers about how warm it was. I found him sitting in his comfy chair with a fan on his desk while he complained about spreadsheets. The moment he went on his lunch a few hours later, my supervisor and I shot upstairs and grabbed the fan, went down to the stockroom and stomped on that fan until it was in pieces. Then we dumped the evidence in a bin bag in a public bin outside the back of the shop. The stupid old boss spent the rest of the day lamenting the loss of his fan, searching around thinking we had hid it, and when he eventually joined us on the shop floor for the final hour of the workday, he decided that we did indeed need the air conditioning switched on. Well, every morning after this, we ensured our large industrial bin was dumped in his parking spot so that he would have to get out of his car to move it before parking every single morning for years. And yeah guys, that is what I call consistency. Thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow. Please check out my playlist on the left if you cannot get enough of my videos.